In this video, we're going to go over filtration. Most of our systems will have filtration in some way, shape, or form. Not all of them will. If you have a system that is running exclusively on reverse osmosis water, you most likely don't have these filters. These can be pre-filters, so we can be using them before ozonation. Most of our filters are going to be post-ozone skid, and the reason for that, ozone's a really good microflocculant. And so what that means is it's going to cause a lot of things to come out of solution that are normally very soluble, particularly iron and manganese. And so after we bring those things out of solution, we then need to make sure that we catch them and take them out of solution so they don't cause problems further downstream. So hence the filtration. So these are auto backwashing filters, and we're going to talk a lot about backwash today. Okay, so the first question is, how do you know when to backwash? So when we install these, there are some sort of standard settings that I'll show you here in just a second that are pretty good across the board for most people. The thing that the customer needs to determine most often is how frequently. So am I going to backwash every day, every other day? A lot of this just depends on the incoming quality of water, all those different kind of things. And so again, we'll talk about that. Most of our filter sets are going to come with two different pressure gauges, one on the inlet and one on the common outlet. And that way you know what the pressure is coming into the filter, you know what it is coming out of the filter. For example, most of our systems are going to run at, say, 40 psi. So what we're looking for is this. When the filters are normally clean and they're not getting congested, what should happen is you should have very little pressure drop across the filter. So if you're at 40 psi coming into it, for example, you really should probably be maybe 38-ish, maybe 37, just somewhere in that neighborhood. Let's say less than 5 psi. So again, there should be some pretty minimal pressure drop across the filter. Now, at any given time, you can look at that, and that may fluctuate just slightly. But what we generally recommend is when you are looking at these gauges and you see a consistent, sustained differential of greater than 5 psi, it's time to backwash. And so one of the things that we'll tell you to do is when you first start running the system and you're refining this process, you want to keep an eye on this. And we've got applications where customers need to backwash twice a day. They have really dirty water. We have some applications where they might backwash twice in a whole week. So again, you need to be monitoring these gauges for a sustained greater than 5 psi differential, and that's how you're going to know when it's time to backwash. Now from there, let's move on to the controls. You're going to open up this cover here, and the first thing you'll see are these outer knobs. So the very first thing you want to do is set your time of day. This is super easy. We're just going to push in the little red button and then line the wheel up here with time of day. You've got 12 a.m. all the way through the clock back to 12 a.m. So right now, at the time of this video, it's almost 4 o'clock. We'll just say 4 o'clock. Okay, so we're going to set that time of day. The next thing that you're going to do, and again, this is after you're monitoring your process. Let's say that you need to backwash every other day. We're going to come to this little dial, and we're going to push away from the center, the 1, the 3, the 5, the 7, and so on every other day. So this is day 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, as you can see. Okay, if you needed to backwash every day, you'd push every single one of these out away from the center. We'll open up the inside here. A little bit more going on. This wheel right here is important for backwashing as well. So if you look at these little metal pins, each one of these little metal pins is going to turn because they're inserted in this wheel. So as the 24-hour day progresses, this wheel is going to turn on its own. That also turns here. Okay, and so once these pins come to this little arm right there, that would be our first stage of backwash. So this first group of pins is going to be our first stage of backwash. Each one of these pins is 2 minutes long, so after 2 minutes goes by, the system will turn itself again, 2 more minutes, 2 more minutes, and then eventually we'll reach that second stage of backwash, which is no pins. The third and final stage of backwash, the way we normally have it set up, would be here. So again, as the system progresses every 2 minutes, it's going to go, and eventually it's going to get through all the pins, and it's going to reset itself and go back into normal filtration. Again, each one of these pins is 2 minutes. ATT will generally set this up for you. The part of the process that you need to determine is, again, how frequently to backwash. But these pins don't normally need to be adjusted. Another thing that it's important to know about backwash, when we talk about these controls, this is for auto backwash only. So in other words, this filter does not have to be plugged in for the filter to be filtering the water. But it does need to be plugged in so that it can auto backwash itself. I really can't think of any reason why you wouldn't want to have that plugged in. We do have customers that will manually backwash this system by rotating this wheel occasionally and starting the process. But again, even doing that, it still has to be plugged in. So the power is for the timer, not for the filtration itself. And again, we do recommend having that plugged in and let this thing do its own thing where you don't have to manage it, because again, if you get into a situation where you forget to manually backwash it, the media can slowly get congested, and that can cause a lot of other problems in your system that you don't want to have to deal with. So again, we recommend just monitoring this up front, figure out this process, get it set up, and then just let it run. The media that we use, we'll cover this in a separate video, how we actually put this in, but this is a non-depleting media. So in other words, if you install this correctly, this stuff will sit in here for 15, 20 years, and you really don't ever have to do anything with it. You don't lose any of it when it backwashes, and so you generally don't have to do anything as far as maintenance with that. The last thing I'd say about the filters here, most of our systems, again, depending on how yours is designed, they're equipped with a clean-in-place process. So ozone being a really powerful disinfectant, we can harness that to not just clean the water before it goes to the plants, but we can also use this to sanitize any biofilm that may be growing downstream of the system or anywhere else that you would want to use that. So the way we do that is we typically install an actuated valve on the bypass of the filter back here. And the reason we put it here is a good deal of the ozone conversion into dissolved oxygen is happening as the water passes through the filters. So during CIP mode, that process involves bypassing the filters through this actuated valve so that we can keep more active ozone into solution. We don't send it through the filters and convert it into dissolved oxygen. So again, we cover that more in a video, but CIP process involves turning up the ozone at the control panel and then again opening the bypass around the filter.